It's my pleasure to rise here today in this House, the day after by-elections in two provinces in Canada. Some of the commonalities of these two outcomes. In both ridings, the Conservative vote went up by 50% from the last general election. And like the election in June, where we elected a Conservative in St. Paul's in Toronto, another safe Liberal riding turned out to be not so safe at the end of the day. So something has to happen here for people to start listening to what Canadians are actually thinking. For those across the aisle that are still pretending that there isn't a problem here, that Canadians don't see a problem in the way the country is being run, I'm asking them to start paying attention and change their direction. Canadians see clearly how badly government is being run, how they are being marginalized and divided, and they are demanding change as soon as possible. One of these indications of pure government incompetence is the way the Liberals have managed immigration. 1 year ago, I was directed to serve on the House of Commons Committee on Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship. Not a strength I had before, but in Calgary Centre, my office has an immigration caseload that's quite large. Now let me take a moment here to stop and thank my staff in Calgary, Shani Papp and Laura Willardchuk, because they do a fantastic job for Canadians, for new Canadians, for visitors and for families that are navigating the maze of Canada's immigration process. It's a complex enough program, and it's been grossly mismanaged over the past 4 years. A backlog of 2.6 million files. How to deal with it? Expedite 1.2 million files per year for 2 years in a system that managed before that about 320,000 files per year. They increased their workforce by 50% from 9,200 employees in 2020 to 13,685 in 2023. A big increase in government, but corners were cut, and we see the consequences of that with the recent sets of arrests that are happening in Canada. Now, why is this legislation before us? In December 2023, Ontario's Superior Court declared the first generation cutoff rule in the Citizenship Act unconstitutional. That ruling was a damning indictment of the Liberal-run Citizenship Department. The court found a staggering 50% error rate in the processing of citizenship applications. This means that half of all applicants were mishandled, leading to abnormally long processing times and widespread malpractice. Such a high error rate is unacceptable and speaks volumes about the incompetence and mismanagement within the current administration. That is the rationale for finding the previous law unconstitutional. I might suggest that fixing the problem would make the whole issue less unconstitutional. But Bill C-71 proposes to grant citizenship to individuals born abroad with at least one Canadian parent who has spent 1,095 days in Canada, the equivalent of 3 years. However, it fails to require these days to be consecutive and lacks provisions for criminal record checks. This approach is deeply flawed and undermines the very essence of what it means to be a Canadian citizen. Citizenship is not just a legal status, it is a commitment to our values, our laws, our way of life. By lowering the standards for obtaining citizenship, the NDP Liberals are devaluing this precious status and putting our national security at risk. This is something that the world looks at as being a very, very important document, a Canadian passport. And I'm going to interrupt you at this point in time, Madam Speaker, because I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the speech that I'm splitting my time with the Member of Parliament for Thornhill. Thank you. Now let's compare Canada's rules here with rules around the world. 3 years in Canada, according to this proposed bill, 5 years in most other democracies, and 5 years of real connection, not just sporadic 1,095 days spread out over a person's quarter century. Bill C-71 removes the 2009 limit that only allowed citizenship to the first generation born abroad. Under this bill, children born abroad to a Canadian parent, even if the parent was also born abroad, can gain citizenship as long as the parent meets a weak substantial connection test. The parent only needs to show 1,095 cumulative days of physical presence in Canada at any point in their life. Since the days do not need to be consecutive, someone living multiple generations abroad with limited sporadic ties to Canada can still claim citizenship for their children. This weakens the substantial connection requirement and risks a class of citizens with minimal ties to this country. Moreover, the government hasn't provided any analysis on how many new Canadians will be created by Bill C-71. Despite the potential for tens of thousands of new applicants, especially due to the removal of the first-generation limit, the Liberals have failed to disclose how many people will gain citizenship through this legislation. This lack of transparency, a common thread, is concerning and prevents us from fully understanding the impact of this bill. Bill C-71 will add thousands of new applications to an already overburdened system. The Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada is already struggling with delays and errors in processing citizenship applications. Adding a significant volume of new applications from abroad will overwhelm the department, exacerbating the existing backlogs. This will lead to an even longer processing time and further erode trust in our citizenship process. The bill does not require individuals granted citizenship to undergo criminal background checks. This poses a potential security risk and undermines Canada's standards of who can become a citizen. Ensuring that new citizens are of good character and pose no threat to our society is a common sense measure that should not be overlooked. We do support parts of this bill. While we have significant concerns, there are aspects we do support. Conservatives support the restoration of citizenship to individuals who lost it due to non-application or rejected applications under the former Citizenships Act, Section 8. This primarily includes people born between February 15th, 1977 and April 16th, 1981, who were impacted by the old rule that required them to apply to retain their citizenship before turning 28 years old. This was part of the original content of Senator Yona Martin's Senate Public Bill S-245, which aimed to address these issues more directly. We also support the extension of equal treatment to adopted children born abroad. Under the proposed changes, adopted children will be treated the same as biological children of Canadian citizens for the purposes of passing on citizenship. This was supported by Conservative members during the S-245 clause-by-clause committee review and is consistent with our party's long-standing position on equal treatment for adopted children. Conservatives are committed to fixing the broken citizenship system that the Liberals have neglected. We will enforce a more robust, substantial connection requirement, streamline processes, and address backlogs to ensure timely handling of citizenship applications. Our approach will restore integrity and trust in the system, ensuring that Canadian citizenship remains a privilege earned through genuine connection and commitment to our great nation. After 9 years of this government, Canadians have endured enough chaos and incompetence. It's time for a change. Only common sense Conservatives will put an end to this Prime Minister's reckless mismanagement and fix our broken immigration and citizenship process. We will restore integrity, trust, and efficiency to the process, ensuring that Canadian citizenship remains a privilege earned through genuine connection and commitment to this great nation. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for London West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to take the opportunity to say how happy I am to see my colleague come back, who also sits on the committee with me on immigration. I find it really interesting that he is complaining about the Liberals taking too much time to fix something that they broke. Can the member opposite talk about the fact that this is something that his government, the Harper government, the same government that the current leader of the opposition sat in, created to leave Canadians behind, to create second-class citizens, and why he thinks that's a Liberal problem when it's a problem that they created themselves. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the question. 9 years would be a long time for a problem to exist if that problem was created 9 years ago, but somebody should have fixed something in 9 years if that problem actually occurred 9 years ago. But if that was created 9 years ago, I would ask my colleague on the other side why her party supported the party that brought that to the House and voted every one of them for that same motion. So thank you very much.
Questions et commentaires, l'honorable député d'Abitibi-Témiscamingue.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci à mon collègue de Calgary Centre pour son intervention. Évidemment, là, il n'est pas question de créer des plaques tournantes dans ce contexte-là, mais de réparer des injustices historiques. J'aimerais savoir qu'est-ce que mon collègue de Calgary Centre répond aux femmes canadiennes qui ont marié un non-canadien avant 1947, qui ont près de 100 ans aujourd'hui et qui ne verront peut-être pas, à cause de l'obstruction des conservateurs, leurs droits les plus fondamentaux respectés avant leur mort. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
C'est un aspect que je ne connais pas bien, mais est-ce qu'il a un exemple qui est quelque chose pour examiner ici? Bien, je suis au courant d'examiner avec lui, mais peut-être il y a beaucoup d'exemples, mais il y a beaucoup d'exemples de plusieurs situations qui sont dans le milieu. On pourrait examiner une situation comme ça, une situation comme une autre, mais ici, on établit une politique pour adresser tous les immigrants du Canada, mais j'examine avec mon ami et je serai. Merci beaucoup.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. It's been clear since day one, since June 2023, that the Conservatives do not want to rectify the unconstitutional second-generation cutoff rule for lost Canadians and their families. They voted against provisions that would have rectified the unconstitutional second-generation cutoff amendments. They filibustered the bill for 30 hours at committee, and they stalled the reading debate for the bill 8 times, Madam Speaker. One thing that I know is that actions speak louder than words, and their actions have been really, really clear. So my question is, why are the Conservatives misleading family members with their fake commitments? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I agree with my colleague that actions speak louder than words. So let's talk about actions here. Let's talk about how we're actually dealing with Canadians here. Let's talk about the substantive test that made this ruling unconstitutional, and that was the actions of the Liberal government that has been unable to deliver any efficiency in getting people through the immigration process. A 50% failure rate in mistakes is what makes this unconstitutional. That should be fixed forthwith. That would address the ruling of unconstitutionality that came with this. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The honourable member for Oxford.
I'd just like to ask my honourable colleague, he mentioned the difference in the test of the connection to Canada. If you could offer a few comments on the value of citizenship.
Honourable member is not, I apologize, the honourable member is not sitting in his seat, so I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. The honourable member for Calgary Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sometimes it's hard to notice those of us who are... The Standing Order 16 was a great standing order when it was suspended temporarily, so we could sit at any place and actually speak. That way we could represent our constituents from any part here. I think benches were a great solution. I want to ask the member from Calgary Centre the following question. He heard, as I did many times, I was asked the questions during the debate on a previous private member's bill that dealt with the same question. How many Canadians would be affected by this? How many persons who are outside of the country would be affected by it? Because we on the Conservative side obviously agree with the adoption provisions. We want adopted children to be treated exactly the same way a Canadian born in Canada or those naturalized in Canada, because they would be treated the same way. I wonder if that member could tell me, does he know how many Canadians would be affected by it? Because the minister couldn't answer the question.
Very brief answer from the honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Exactly. Thank you, and I thank my colleague for the question. exactly one of the concerns we have. How many people are we dealing with this actual opening up of the immigration system to Canada? How many? We've asked the question of the ministry. We've asked the question of the department. Nobody knows. So there's
Resuming